Hey guys, Matt here. Before we begin this episode of Tower Junkies, I just want to mention that we are currently running a contest where you can win a free Tower Junkies t-shirt. The contest runs from now until January 1st, 2018, and if you want to enter, all you have to do is leave a rating and a review of the podcast on iTunes or Stitcher, take a screenshot of the review and email it to matt@obsessiveviewer.com with the subject line Tower Junkies T-Shirt Contest. On January 1st, I'll randomly select a winner from the entries and we'll get a free t-shirt mailed to them. We'll be accepting entries until December 31st at midnight, so make sure you get the email in before then. Thank you guys for listening and enjoy this week's episode of Tower Junkies.
You're clean, aren't you? Except for your tower. You're a tower junkie, Roland.
Hello and welcome to Tower Junkies, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. Tower Junkies is a podcast devoted to Stephen King and his magnum opus, the Dark Tower series. We discuss the themes, characters, and mythology of the series in Palaver episodes, and review the books and comic series in Kef episodes. We also discuss King novels related to the Dark Tower, non-Tower King novels, TV and film adaptations of King's work, and the latest news about potential Dark Tower-related adaptations. You can find more of our work at TowerJunkiesPod.com and follow us on every level of social media at Tower Junkies Pod. I am your host, Matt Hurt, and with me today is my co-host, Tiny.
Hello, folks.
Hi, Tiny. How's it going?
Terrific. I'm a little sick.
Great. You sure are. You sure are.
Yeah, please ignore my raspy voice.
Yes. Would you like
don't
me...
ignore my voice, but
right.
Try to get past it.
Yes. Would you like me to get you some Aston? Dark Tower.
Because Stephen King.
Yes. So today on the podcast, is that a no, by the way?
That's a no.
Okay. So today on the podcast, we're actually going to be discussing the latest Stephen King adaptation that has hit Netflix. It's 1922. Based on the novella from the Full Dark, No Stars short story collection, which I think was published in the early 2000s, the early aughts, I think.
Sounds right.
Yeah, we're super prepared here. But it stars Thomas Jane, an alum of Stephen King adaptations. He was in The Mist. And also has Molly Parker and Dylan Schmid. Directed and written by Zach Hilditch, which I am not familiar with really any of his other work.
He hasn't done much.
He really hasn't. What I can gather, these look like, I mean, unless I am just completely my head in the sand, these look like kind of independent releases. It doesn't look like he has any real high-profile work under his belt.
Right.
Yeah, but... yeah, so we'll get to that in a moment, but as we like to do here on Tower Junkies, we'd like to kind of check in with each other and see where we're at, like, in the world of Stephen King. Like, what's new with you, Tiny, in regards with Stephen King?
I recently purchased Different Seasons.
Oh, nice.
I purchased the physical copy of it. I may have mentioned that in the last episode.
I can't remember if you did or not.
I can't remember either. I've had it for a little while. I haven't started it yet, but that's my next kind of on-deck book.
Nice.
But I'm currently listening to Sleeping Beauties, the
nice
new one. So,
how far are you in it?
I'm about halfway through it.
Oh,
and,
really?
Yeah, I'm not crazy about it.
Oh, wow.
Not so far. I think it's reminding me a lot of another one of his books, and it's not in a good way.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm trying to pick what it is, because I'm only like 4 hours into it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to step it up so we can review it.
Yeah,
I've been really dragging my feet.
The first week back to work from my wedding, I had to work in Columbus every day.
Oh, okay.
Which Columbus, Indiana is about 40 miles south of Indianapolis, and so I had to drive for an hour there and an hour back every day.
Oh, okay.
So that was like, and then I always listen to it during my lunch break. Mm-hmm. So that was like 12 to 15 hours of listening to a book in the car. So that's why I'm so far ahead on it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I will definitely step it up, because I haven't even opened it to listen to it lately. Yeah, I'm 4 hours and 20 minutes into it. Yeah, and it's interesting because I've gotten, I mean, I'm still really early into it, but I mean, I was kind of digging it a little bit, so I'm kind of curious how I'm going to feel about it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. Anything else that you've got Stephen King wise?
Nope. But I mean, just a long-term goal is to try to familiarize myself with the stories that take place around Castle Rock for the upcoming show. So
nice.
That's kind of my big picture for the moment.
Nice. Did you see the trailer for Castle Rock?
Was it like a teaser thing, sort of?
Which one? They had one with actual. Yeah, they had one with actual footage.
Okay, so no, I have not seen that.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll have you check it out, and then we'll talk about it on another episode. But yeah, as for me, is that all you got?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, what do you got going?
Sweet. Well, let's see. So I've got, again, I'm 4 hours into Sleeping Beauties, which I'm not deep enough into it to really get a fair opinion of it yet, but I think that what I'm most interested in it is that the premise is so interesting to me. Like, it's such a cool, like, Stephen King-esque premise. Like, oh, what if all the women in the world fell asleep and didn't wake up? Mm-hmm. That's just an interesting thought experiment, and I'm excited to see where the narrative takes us. So I'm excited for that. And then also we are recording this on November 1st, and I had pre-ordered, I think I referenced it in another episode, I had pre-ordered this, which came in the mail yesterday. Nightmares and Dreamscapes.
Awesome.
The new paperback edition of it.
Sweet.
Yeah, which, man, I just love the look of the paperback, like the cover and the light and the lighting of it, and the composition of the cover art and the font used for the title and everything. So I'm excited for this. My kind of goal is to start going through the short story collections, like maybe reading a short story before bed each night, and starting with Night Shift. So, yeah, but this one is exciting because I know that they adapted this into a movie or a series.
It was a miniseries. I want to say TNT or TBS.
That sounds about right.
I watched it.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Nice. Anything stand out?
It was okay. Yeah, it was. There was one story they filmed that was an episode. I think it was like 40 some minutes for the episode, and there is zero dialogue in it.
Oh, really?
It's pretty. It was an interesting thing to see.
Nice. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Just looking through the table of contents, there are some that kind of jump out as something that I'm interested in reading, like Sorry, Right Number, which I think was adapted. I don't know if that was adapted into an 85 Twilight Zone episode or not. Or another show, I'm not sure. But that, and then The Night Flyer, I'm kind of excited about, or kind of curious about.
Okay.
So I'm excited to go through that and check it out. And what else? Also, I did receive, I had pre-ordered this on Audible, and it auto-downloaded, Strange Weather, the new release from Joe Hill.
Cool.
Who you've read Horns, didn't you?
No, I saw the movie.
Okay. Have you read any of Joe Hill's stuff?
No, I don't think I have.
Interesting. See, I haven't either, and I'm always like, I'm of the thought that my brain works weird. I'm just like, maybe I should, read all of Stephen King's first and then go to Joe Hill. But I have 2 Joe Hill audiobooks on Audible. So now I have Strange Weather, which is a collection of, I think, 4 novellas. And I also have The Fireman, which I am really excited to listen to at some point, because if I may just kind of I'll read the plot summary if you'd like. So Here's the plot summary for The Fireman. No one knows exactly when it began or where it originated. A terrifying new plague is spreading like wildfire across the country, striking cities one by one. Boston, Detroit, Seattle. The doctors call it Draco-Incendia Trichophyton. To everyone else, it's dragon scale, a highly contagious, deadly spore that marks its hosts with beautiful black and gold marks across their bodies before causing them to burst into flames. Millions are infected, blazes erupt everywhere. There is no antidote, no one is safe.
Jeez.
That just sounds like such an awesome premise for a book, so I'm excited to check that out too.
Totally.
Yep, and then I also finished Christine, the novel, which I'll be doing a solo, as far as I know, solo review of it for the podcast.
Totally.
And then we will be doing a review of the movie.
Yes.
At some point.
Yes, we will.
And then, Yeah, and I think that's all I've got for Stephen King check-ins. So that's where I'm at with Stephen King, and that's where we are with Stephen King. Mm-hmm. So, 1922.
Yes.
Have you get the elephant out of the room? Have you read the novella that from Full Dark No Stars?
I have not. I hadn't even heard of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
I haven't read it either. I wanted to read it prior to seeing it and prior to recording, but I just didn't have time. I think it's like 130 pages.
Okay.
So I just I couldn't allocate the time to read it before recording, or before seeing the movie. But it's, out of Full Dark No Stars, I was aware of it and I knew what the general premise was. And as far as the movie goes, I just knew that Thomas Jane and Molly Parker were in it, and that's pretty much all I knew. Uh-huh. And that it had something to do with rats.
Yeah.
That was the extent of my knowledge.
Right.
So the way we're going to do the review is that we're going to talk in a non-spoiler section, just giving an overview of our thoughts on the movie, and then we will dive into a spoiler review. We will warn you well ahead of time before we go into spoilers, and mark it with timestamps in the show notes, and we will also play a clip from the trailer prior to jumping into spoilers. So, Tiny, in broad, non-spoiler terms, how did you feel about 1922?
I felt really good about it.
Nice.
I enjoyed it thoroughly. I think the director and the cinematographer and the actors and costume, everyone involved achieved a really really beautiful but also very stark aesthetic throughout the movie. Like, I think it just had this great filter to it almost. I really appreciated it. It felt the adjective that kept popping into my head was stark. Mm-hmm. Which was, it's the 20s and life was much more difficult and stuff like that. So I think they achieved that really well. It just felt really genuine in that respect. So, I enjoyed it. I think it had some, this was one of Stephen King's scary stories. And I think it achieved that definitely. But it was also like, kind of touching, I guess is the word that I would say, and it was kind of I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase it, but it was it was scary, but it was also kind of an amazing story. Like, it was you felt sad throughout part of it, and then like it just has a kind of an interesting moments of redemption, I think, or comeuppance that I think are pretty enjoyable. Yeah, I liked it a lot. I think it's amazing the level of quality that we get from Netflix now. Like, it's just this was like a really great scary horror-ish kind of movie, and like, I feel like the stuff we get in the theaters now just sucks, and I'm really glad that Netflix exists because we get awesome stuff like this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I liked it a lot. I think it was great.
Nice. Very nice.
How about you?
Well.
Oh, shit.
Well.
Oh, God.
Well, anyway.
I got it.
Yeah. Okay, good. It sucks that I had to do that twice, so rats. Anyway.
God damn it.
No, well, I enjoyed it. I did. I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. I thought it was, not quite a bit. I liked it okay.
Okay.
I really loved Thomas Jane's performance. He was doing some really weird things with his voice and his mannerisms.
He was, yeah.
Very much. It kind of, in a different movie with a different tone, it would seem almost ridiculous a little bit, or a little bit over the top.
Right.
But for whatever reason, with this tone, this kind of, to borrow your word, this stark tone that was struck with this movie, it kind of fit. It fit well that he's this guy who is, it's not so much that he's emotionally unhinged. It's just that he is, not even, I wouldn't say simple-minded, but he's very much kind of a straightforward guy with a goal that he wants to achieve, and he has his own his own ways of achieving those goals. He has a stranger within him, a cunning person who is going to institute evil within his to reach his ends. Which I just realized we didn't read the plot summary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and do that now. So here's the plot description for 1922, courtesy of IMDb. A simple yet proud farmer in the year 1922 conspires to murder his wife for financial gain, convincing his teenage son to participate. I feel like that's a little bit too much plot.
Almost
in the summary. Yeah, I might nix that. But anyway.
But it's not a secret that he kills his wife, I think.
That's true. And he does, and it is within the first 15 minutes that happens and that it's clear. So that's fair. But anyway, so I mean, it's kind of this, not simple-minded, but just this straightforward guy who isn't like a mastermind or anything. He's just like, okay, I want to do this thing. And what's kind of chilling about the character is that it's not that he has a struggle of conscience with that. He doesn't have this. He's not saying like, okay, well, should I do this or should I not do this? What are the other options and everything? It's just like, yep, I'm going to do this. It's just kind of straightforward. Almost Coen Brothers.
Yeah.
But not quite as like refined as them.
Right.
But yeah. I liked the way that, like you said, the kind of comeuppance of certain characters and certain events, the way certain things kind of play out, felt very, rewarding in a very morbid and weird way.
Right.
And the rats just really made me unnerved.
Yeah.
Also, the makeup effects and the visual effects of different things throughout the movie is what I'll say. Very, very unsettling. Like,
definitely
in a way that's not like horror movie unsettling. It's like it's just kind of there, and it breathes there, and it just gets under your skin and in your mouth. A
little bit.
Yeah. Let's see. Anything else about non-spoilers? How'd you feel about the kid that played the son?
I think he was a standout, really.
Nice.
Dylan Schmidt is the actor who played Hank James.
Right.
I liked him. I think he could have very easily gotten lost in the shuffle. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the, it's mentioned in the plot description that the main character convinces his son to help him with this murder. And to me, I think that's the even more than a husband killing his wife. I think that is the most egregious part of the film. That a father convinces his son to help him kill his mother. Most disturbing part of it, just the fact that he forced I don't know about forced, but convinced his son to help him. That's just, it's one thing to ruin your own life, but to convince your kid to do it is just really terrible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I just appreciated the evolution of his character and the way he delivered that performance. I thought he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I agree. He was very much a character that was kind of forced into or manipulated into actions that he shouldn't have committed, obviously. And the way he played it was just this very much well, you're the authority figure in my life. I'm just going to follow your lead. And the way that played out was really, really great. And I love the way that arc played out. And we'll talk more about that in spoilers, but it seemed like a very fitting way to have that arc go concurrently with Thomas Jane's characters. Like the paths of those characters went into very satisfying areas after the kind of heinous crime that's committed in the early part of the movie.
Right.
Yeah, and also we got an appearance from Neil McDonough.
We did.
Love seeing him in things. He's awesome. Totally. I really need to see what is he? Am I thinking? No, I'm thinking of someone else. Never mind. Anyway, really great to see him in things. He's awesome.
Yes.
And should we kind of just dive right into spoilers, or Yeah. Before we do that, 2 questions for you.
Okay.
One, how do you compare this, or how do you feel about 1922 in comparison to Gerald's Game? Which one do you prefer as an adaptation, or which one do you prefer as a Netflix original film adaptation of a Stephen King work?
Man, that's a tough call.
Yeah.
I might prefer this one, actually.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because they're both kind of horror-y, and they have horror elements to them, at least. Definitely scary moments. But I feel like that's not the highlight of either story.
Okay.
So I think that's, it's like, oh man, that one scene was scary as hell, but it's like, but then you feel the disturbing nature of another, or like a shocking nature of another part of the movie, and that stands out more than the horror does. So I think both films achieve that well, but I think I might go with 1922 because it's it's not even a more unique story. A man killing his wife is a classic, for lack of a better word.
Right.
But I don't know. I think it's just the way it's handled, sort of. The way that the supernatural or horror element of 1922 is handled versus Gerald's Game. I think I just appreciate the cleverness of it, I guess. That's how I'll put it. But I don't know. I might feel differently having thought about it a little bit more. Yeah, I think I'd very slightly give the edge to 1922.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I think that I am going to go the other route.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely, gun to my head, I would pick Gerald's Game over 1922. I do agree that the story in 1922 has something to it that's maybe not more interesting or more grabbing, but there's a certain undertone to it that, I mean, the whole fact that he's manipulating his child into doing something horrific gives a lot to the story, which is kind of interesting because, there's a similar thing to an extent. Like, you can say the same about a certain subplot in Gerald's Game, this person manipulating his child into doing something
right.
heinous and terrible.
Now you're making me want to change my answer.
I know. But yeah, I just think that the story and the themes of Gerald's Game were played out a lot better. And I think part of that is just because the source material was a full novel, and then 1922 was a novella. But I just think I appreciated the story and the filmmaking of Gerald's Game above 1922.
Okay.
Yeah. And then my second question, Thomas Jane, Stephen King performances. Was he in Dreamcatcher? I don't think he was. Because all I'm thinking is The Mist.
He may have been in Dreamcatcher.
Yeah. Well, for all intents and purposes, how do you rank this or how do you compare this performance with his performance in The Mist as David Drayton? He was in Dreamcatcher.
He was, yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, I haven't seen Dreamcatcher since I first saw Dreamcatcher.
Yeah, it wasn't very good.
Yeah, and I think that was in a movie theater with you.
Was it?
Yeah, I think we saw Dreamcatcher together with Kyle in high school.
I do not remember.
Yeah.
Don't remember.
Well, hanging out with you is very memorable to me too.
Nice.
So how do you? So, Dreamcatcher aside, how do you feel about Thomas Jane's performances in The Mist and 1922?
I would give the edge to 1922.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like not to take anything away from The Mist. That's a better movie. Absolutely. But in The Mist, I feel like he's playing kind of the standard Stephen King everyman a little bit. He's an artist, almost a struggling artist, you could say.
Yeah.
Or a struggling writer. He uses that one a lot, or a teacher. So I feel like that character was a little more vanilla. Not his performance, but the character was. Whereas this character, what's his first name? James, Mr. James. I can't think of his first name.
Wilfred. Yeah, Wilfred.
Wilfred James. I feel like this character, while his journey or his major event where he chooses to kill his wife is a little bit It's a little bit standard. I feel like what he had to, the lengths he had to go to for the character were a little bit more extreme with the physicality of it and of course, the kind of extreme accent. I feel like that was it's a period piece, you know? I feel like that was a little bit more work on his part and
sure,
a little bit more of a unique flair he had to apply to this performance. So I would go with 1922 for that reason. But The Mist is a better movie overall.
That's fair, and I think that my love of The Mist, which I agree is hands down a better movie in general. Yeah. I think my feelings toward that is just going to cloud my judgment of the performance, and I'll say his performance in The Mist, if only for just that ending,
right?
That ending sequence. And he is that kind of standard Stephen King everyman, struggling artist or struggling creative person. But he is kind of the straight man in a world that's going crazy all around him, and I think that there's a lot of nuance to that characterization.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So I think that's where I would land.
Okay.
But I loved his performance in 1922. I thought he did great.
Nice.
Yeah. And so we're going to talk more in depth about 1922 here in just a second. We are going to go into spoilers. So if you haven't watched the movie yet, go fire up Netflix, watch it, and then come back and listen to us. We will give you a brief section or a brief clip from the trailer to, let you turn off the podcast if you want to. So, we're going to go into spoilers starting right now.
And I believe that there's another man inside every man, a conniving man.
I'm gonna sell. You, my son, are coming with me.
This is our house. In 1922, I murdered my wife.
Okay, so 1922.
Yes.
I really liked March 1922. What was your favorite? I'm kidding.
Jesus.
Stupid joke. Spoilers. Spoilers on for 1922.
Yes.
The depiction of the corpses, like just the makeup effects and the visual effects of the corpses and then the haunting of him was really unsettling.
Totally.
Yeah. Like that first shot when he looks down into the well and sees the rats over her body, and then the rat coming, that was so unsettling to see the rat, not only the rat coming out of her mouth, that alone is just creepy as hell.
Yeah.
But coming out tail first.
Yeah.
That just amplified it so much for me.
And the sound.
Yes.
The sound. Ugh,
yes.
Yeah.
Very effective.
Stomach churning.
Oh yeah.
Totally. But I think what really sticks out to me with this story is the fact that the haunting, quote unquote, of Wilfred James by his dead wife is really unique, because I think in so many haunting movies like the Poltergeist or whatever, the haunting is associated with harm. It's not just torment. And so it's like this ghost wants to harm you or, kill you even. I think that's what we associate the fear with so many haunting stories. But this, she's not trying to kill him. She's not trying to harm him in any way. She's trying to haunt him. She's trying to literally, whisper things into his ear about how he wronged her and how his choices and his actions are the only thing that are negatively affecting him right now. She's not making his house crumble apart. She didn't drive their son away. She didn't kill anyone. She has had nothing to do with his bad luck. It's all a direct result of his actions. And she's just kind of posthumously throwing that in his face,
right?
Which I found really interesting, because there's that scene where she's haunting him, and he kind of like falls down the stairs into the cellar, and her ghost, kind comes down the stairs with all the rats, and I'm like, oh my God, she's about to bite his head off or just whip his throat out or something horrible. But all she does is like whisper truths into his ear. And I was like, man, that is so much worse. And, you know, and we get to the end and we find out it's, you know, 8 years after he killed his wife. He's had to live with this horrible haunting for 8 years. And you can really see I think you can see that the toll that's taken on him when we see those moments in 1930. I thought that was just he's kind of just living with his actions. It's almost not supernatural or not ghost paranormal.
It's just a physical manifestation of his guilt.
He could just as easily be hallucinating those things, you know. And so I think that's what I thought was so cool, is that it's I was shocked by his torture and by his torment, as opposed to, you know, how creepy the ghost is or whatever. You know, that's what I really appreciated about the story. I think that's what makes it unique and really made it stand out to me.
Yeah, totally. And also you can tell how much emotional turmoil he's gone through over the span of time, because when he's writing the letter, he has a beard.
He does have a beard.
But no, in all seriousness, I agree with what you said and everything.
Nice.
I don't know if I missed something. How did he lose his hand?
He got bit by a rat.
That's right.
Yeah, and it got infected.
Okay. Was there, because I feel like I don't know what the deal, like I looked and I didn't want to rewind it because I think I remember seeing like a severed finger.
I don't remember a severed finger.
Okay. Yeah, because that's just the image that's burned into my mind, and then I kind of looked away a little bit.
Okay.
But the killing of her, I thought, was very startling and graphic and very well executed.
Yeah. And it didn't have like a ton of fluff. Like there wasn't a bunch of like close-ups of her wide eyes when she's being stabbed, and there wasn't like, you know, gratuitous noise. It was all very gritty and like realistic, and like it's almost like we were like outside observe, like we were like, it's almost like we were standing in the room just observing from a corner.
Yes,
that's how it felt, as opposed to like being in there in the action.
Yeah. And
it's amazing how it's almost like the director was excluding the audience from the event, but it's almost like watching it happen is worse.
Yes.
I guess that's just kind of how I felt. I was, you know, because typically you'd want a director who's like, oh, I want to be right up in the action, and I want to have like close-ups, and I want to make the audience feel like they're there and they're participating in it. Or but that's not how it was. It was strictly observation, and it was arguably worse.
Totally.
Because you felt helpless to do anything about it, and it was just so brutal. And it's like they didn't, and what made it worse is they didn't really know what they were doing.
That's what I was going to say.
So it was like sloppy. Like, you know, you want, if you're going to kill somebody, you want to get it over with quick and get this done. It wasn't, you know, they didn't take pleasure in this. They're not crazy psychopathic serial killers.
Yeah.
They just want her gone.
And they're not practiced at it either.
Exactly.
So
So because it was sloppy, that just made it so much more brutal.
Again, it kind of felt like a Coen Brothers-esque kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
Which I don't know if that was the intention to kind of, or that was one of the inspirations for really the whole movie, but it kind of had a very Coen Brothers kind of feel to it.
Absolutely.
Now, as far as Henry/Hank and his love interest, Shannon, I thought that was a really interesting element. And having him knock her up and then run off with her, and then them get killed, or like she gets killed, like that's so tragic. And then not only that, but him killing himself, and then Wilfred having to see the body, like seeing the body, like that. One of the things that the movie didn't shy away from was the, I wouldn't say gratuitous, but the grotesque nature of, you know, decomposing bodies and dead bodies.
Right.
That was kind of the movie's highest point for me, is that they definitely went the extra mile to show, like, when he sees his son's body, he sees an eye missing and stitched up face. Very grotesque and very much just hitting it home for him.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. What did you think of that subplot?
Yeah, I felt sorry. I felt sorry for Wilfred James. You know, I felt I shouldn't.
Right.
It's all, like I said, it's all a direct result of his actions. But I think he actually says there's a line in the movie where he says, you know, no, I think he says something along the lines of no father should have to kiss the corpse of his son.
Yeah.
Or something, or say goodbye to his son or something like that.
Something like kissing his son for the last time.
There you go.
Yeah.
Something like that. But yeah, like that, I really felt that, you know, I agree with that. The father should not have to go through that.
Yeah.
Regardless of what he's done. So that totally struck a chord with me. I also really loved the back and forth between Thomas Jane and Molly Parker. I thought, it's odd to say it, but they had great chemistry because they're two characters who don't like each other anymore.
Right.
And they're not in love. They're in a completely loveless marriage. But that can be hard to achieve, you know. I really bought into their disdain for one another. And I realized how they both felt trapped. You know, I completely bought that premise, and I think they both sold that really well through their bickering and their conflict. I think that was well done. That can be hard to achieve. So kudos to both of those actors.
I definitely agree with you there. Yeah, they were great. And one thing about Molly Parker's character, that kind of I don't know, maybe I missed something, but it kind of seemed like kind of a stretch for them to go from their, you know, marital issues, and then he manipulates them into, or manipulates her into thinking that he wants to live in the city or what have you. And then they get the scene where she's drunk, and then she's speaking very crassly about Shannon and toward Henry. It just seemed kind of out of character. It didn't seem like there was any build up toward, like, oh, she's talking about how, you know, he should just dry hump his girlfriend so that he doesn't knock her up. And I'm like, where did this come from?
It's kind of plain talk for a mother and son. Yeah. Or a very abrupt speech. I don't know how to announce or describe it, but yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. That was hard to hear. Yeah,
it was hard to hear, and it just seemed like it didn't. It seemed like the movie didn't lay the groundwork that she would be that belligerent and crass.
Yeah, she wasn't super sympathetic.
Right.
I mean, I think obviously murder is wrong, and no one can refute that. But I think
she kind of deserved it.
She had it coming. I mean, but no, I can follow the logic of why Wilfred James did what he did. I'm not saying I agree with it or it's right, but I can understand that he felt like he was trapped and this was the only way out of that trap. And it didn't work out well for him, but
not so much.
That's what made it a cool story, though.
Yeah, I agree. And going back to what you said about the ghost haunting him, essentially, one of the things I really loved about the movie and about the way the story was doled out to us is that I believe Wilfred says something to the effect of she wasn't she was telling me things that I needed to hear, or she was telling me truths. And so you just see her ghost or her corpse whispering to him, and then you get flashes of the story of Henry and Shannon going and basically getting their entire arc played out in not flashbacks, but flashes of the corpse telling him, like, basically saying, like, hey, yeah, you killed our son because you drove him toward this life and everything. I just thought that was a really interesting narrative choice for the movie, and I thought that worked really well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it was, I feel like the movie was building to that moment, and like I said, I was expecting her to bite his head off or physically harm him, but that's not what she had in mind. And it's a testament to how effective that was, because at the end of it, he asks her to kill him. He's just like, kill me, just kill me.
Yeah.
And she doesn't, because that would be the easy thing to do. And I thought that was, again, I think that's more satisfying as an audience member to witness that torment as opposed to seeing someone just get physically harmed or killed by a ghost. You know?
Absolutely. And that really tied in really well with the last scene of the movie. I thought that was a great way to end it.
Great.
With the increase of the rats, like more and more rats, and then you see the 3 corpses, and then Henry takes the knife, and I think he says something to the effect of, "Don't worry, it'll be quick."
Yeah.
Which is a callback to what he said about killing her with the knife as opposed to the pillow. Just a really great button for the movie to end on, and a really great way to wrap up the story.
Absolutely.
And having said that, do you have any other thoughts on the movie, or should we wrap up this review?
I appreciated the just real quickly the post murder thing. I think there's a line where he talks about how murder is work. And it is, they show him like you got to scrub up the blood, and you got to get rid of the sheets, and you got to get rid of the body, and it's just like it sounds weird, but it's oddly satisfying to see that reality, I guess, because it like if you think about what it takes to murder someone, but then after it you have to like you rarely with a story like this. Or, a enthralling murder story, you don't hear someone like, "Oh, I just pulled out a gun and shot him and ran away," and that was it. It's like, I stabbed them, or I strangled them, or I drowned them, and then you have to sit there and stew in it because you have to get rid of the body for hours.
Yeah.
God knows how long, days even. And you see that in this movie. They have to lure the cow over the well so the cow will fall and die to cover up her body. It's just really fascinating. Like, it's just fascinating to see that play out. I feel like stories and movies kind of skip over some of that minutia.
Yeah, kind of gloss over it or glamorize it even.
Glamorize it,
yeah, and that was definitely well done.
Right.
Yeah, also the cow thing, that was really cool the way that they did it. Like,
I was sitting there watching, I was like, what the fuck are they doing? Then I was like, oh, that's actually really clever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I think that'll do it for this review of 1922.
Absolutely.
Again, we both enjoyed it. I think, Tiny, you enjoyed it a little more than I did, which is fine. But I didn't dislike it. I just, I thought it was cool. Nice. Will you be, would this bump the novella up in your list of things to read?
I think so, yeah. I think I have... No, I don't have Full Dark No Stars. I thought I did. But yeah, it makes me want to get it and read it, definitely.
Nice. Yeah. Well, today's your lucky. I'm kidding. I don't. I have a copy of it, but it's mine.
Damn.
Yeah, you can borrow it though.
For now.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway. All right. Well. We have a ton of stuff. This is kind of awesome because we started this podcast fairly recently, even though we've had already a little bit of a hiatus from releasing episodes. We've been a little inconsistent. Yeah. But people are getting married and stuff, so.
Right.
Yeah, congratulations, Tiny.
Thank you.
So one thing that I was really excited about was that you had messaged me and was like, I finished The Dead Zone. What should I read next? And I'm like, well, you can read this. And then I was like in thinking of that, I was like, we have an embarrassing amount of stuff that we can cover that's current, and it's so exciting to have a platform for that.
Absolutely.
So we will be having an episode that's actually talking about the Dark Tower. That's going to be coming shortly with our friend Tony. It's just going to be a one-on-one review of the Gunslinger, and then eventually we will start our read-through of the Dark Tower series with Fecus. Probably in a month or so. He is about to go on vacation, and he is, I'll keep tabs on him. I guess that'll do it for this episode of Tower Junkies.
Yep.
Stay tuned for the pre-recorded outro, and coming up next, later episodes, we're going to talk about the Gunslinger and also the Dead Zone.
Yep.
Having said all that, long days and pleasant nights.
And may you have twice the number.
Thank you for listening to Tower Junkies, a Dark Tower podcast presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find more of our episodes at TowerJunkiesPod.com, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or anywhere else podcasts are found. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can find ways to do that at towerjunkiespod.com/donate or become a patron for Obsessive Viewer at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer for recurring donations with different reward tiers. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. Any and all feedback on the podcast is encouraged. You can contact us by emailing us at matt@obsessiveviewer.com or by tweeting us at towerjunkiespod or at obsessiveviewer and at obsessivetiny. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/towerjunkiespod. For more podcast content from obsessiveviewer.com, check out Anthology, my solo side project podcast where I'm reviewing The Twilight Zone as a first-time viewer and exploring other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology television shows. You can find Anthology at anthologypod.com and anywhere podcasts are found. Finally, if you're philosophically curious, check out Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, which explores the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda. You can find that at thesecularperspective.com and subscribe to the podcast on the app of your choice. Once again, thank you for listening to Tower Junkies, and we'll see you next time.